The Unspoken Truths, Silence and Its Discontents on the Left. Written by Barry Weiss, formerly of the New York Times. There's a creeping silence on the American left, a reluctance to engage in open and honest debate on critical issues. This silence, often cloaked in the guise of righteousness, has troubling implications for the very principles the left claims to champion: freedom of expression, intellectual diversity, and democratic discourse. It manifests in various forms, from selective outrage to cancel culture, creating a chilling effect on dissenting voices within progressive spaces. This essay will explore the manifestations of this culture of silence, its inherent contradictions, and the urgent need for the left to reclaim its commitment to open dialogue and intellectual freedom. Selective outrage. When morality bends to ideology. In today's polarized world, the lines between morality and ideology often blur, leading to a phenomenon where outrage is selectively applied based on political convenience rather than consistent ethical standards. One of the most glaring examples of this silence is the phenomenon of selective outrage. This selective outrage is not just a minor inconsistency, it is a significant issue that reveals deeper problems within political movements and their approach to justice. The left often finds itself passionately condemning certain injustices while remaining curiously silent on others. This inconsistency is not just a matter of oversight, but often a calculated decision to align with political allies or to avoid criticizing those who share similar ideological views. This selective morality, often dictated by political expediency rather than genuine concern, undermines the left's moral authority and exposes a hypocrisy at its core. When political convenience takes precedence over universal principles, the very foundation of moral advocacy is compromised. Take, for instance, the issue of human rights violations. Human rights should be a universal concern, transcending political boundaries and ideological affiliations. While the left rightly criticizes abuses in countries like the United States, there's a deafening silence when it comes to similar, if not worse, atrocities committed by regimes aligned with leftist ideologies. This silence is not just a passive omission, but an active choice to ignore or downplay certain issues. The case of China is particularly illustrative. China's actions provide a clear example of how selective outrage can manifest in international politics. The Chinese government's egregious human rights record, from its suppression of Uyghur Muslims to its crackdown on pro-democracy activists in Hong Kong, should elicit unequivocal condemnation from all corners. These are not minor infractions, but severe violations that demand a strong and consistent response. Yet, many on the left remain muted, their outrage seemingly reserved for perceived enemies, rather than applied universally. This selective silence is not just a failure to speak out, but a tacit endorsement of certain actions by omission. This selective application of moral outrage, driven by ideological biases, erodes the credibility of the left and fuels accusations of hypocrisy. When moral standards are applied inconsistently, it becomes difficult to take any moral stance seriously. This selective outrage not only undermines the moral high ground the left seeks to occupy, but also sets a dangerous precedent. It suggests that moral principles are flexible and can be bent to suit political needs, which is a dangerous path to tread. It suggests that certain injustices are deemed more worthy of condemnation than others, not based on their severity, but on the political affiliations of the perpetrators. This approach not only weakens the fight against injustice, but also erodes trust in those who claim to advocate for human rights. This undermines the universality of human rights and weakens the fight against injustice globally. To truly advocate for justice, moral outrage must be applied consistently, without regard for political convenience or ideological alignment. Only then can we hope to build a world where human rights are genuinely respected and upheld for all. Cancel culture, the price of dissent in the age of purity politics. Another disturbing manifestation of this culture of silence is the rise of cancel culture. This term has become a catch-all for the phenomenon where individuals face severe social and professional repercussions for expressing views that deviate from the accepted norms. This phenomenon, characterized by swift and often disproportionate social and professional consequences for expressing dissenting views, has become increasingly prevalent within leftist spaces. The speed at which these consequences are meted out often leaves little room for context or understanding. Individuals, particularly those in positions of influence, are ostracized, deplatformed, and publicly shamed for expressing opinions deemed unacceptable by the prevailing orthodoxy. This public shaming can lead to loss of employment, social isolation, and even threats to personal safety. This stifling environment, where the fear of being cancelled looms large, discourages open dialogue and intellectual exploration. People become hesitant to share their true thoughts, leading to a homogenization of ideas and a lack of genuine debate. The case of Bari Weiss, a former opinion editor at the New York Times, provides a stark illustration of cancel culture's chilling effect. Her resignation letter highlighted the toxic atmosphere that can develop in environments where ideological conformity is enforced. Weiss, a self-described liberal, resigned from the paper in 2020, citing a climate of intolerance and bullying within the newsroom. She described how colleagues who disagreed with the dominant views were marginalized and silenced. She argued that her colleagues' insistence on ideological conformity stifled debate and prevented honest reporting on sensitive issues. This insistence on a single narrative can lead to a lack of critical thinking and a failure to address complex issues in a nuanced way. Weiss's experience, unfortunately, is not an isolated incident. Many professionals across various fields have faced similar challenges when their views did not align with the dominant ideology. Across various fields, from academia to entertainment, individuals who dare to challenge the prevailing leftist orthodoxy often find themselves facing similar backlash. This backlash can take many forms, from social media outrage to professional ostracism. Professors have been fired, journalists ostracized, and artists boycotted for expressing views deemed offensive or harmful, even when those views fall well within the bounds of reasonable discourse. This creates a chilling effect where people are afraid to speak out, even on issues that are important to them. This climate of fear and intimidation stifles intellectual curiosity, discourages dissent, and ultimately impoverishes the very dialogue the left claims to value. When people are afraid to speak their minds, society loses out on the rich diversity of perspectives that can lead to progress and understanding. Stifling debate, echo chambers in academia and media. This culture of silence extends beyond individual cases of cancellation, permeating institutions like academia and media, traditionally considered bastions of free thought and open debate. The very places where diverse ideas should flourish are now becoming increasingly homogenized, stifling the rich tapestry of perspectives that once defined them. Universities, once vibrant marketplaces of ideas, are increasingly becoming echo chambers where dissenting viewpoints, particularly those challenging leftist orthodoxy, are silenced or marginalized. This shift is not just a subtle change, but a significant transformation in the academic landscape, where the fear of backlash often outweighs the pursuit of truth and knowledge. Professors who dare to stray from the accepted narrative often face hostility from students, colleagues, and even administrators, creating a chilling effect on academic freedom. The pressure to conform can be overwhelming, leading many to self-censor or avoid controversial topics altogether, thus depriving students of a well-rounded education. Similarly, left-leaning media outlets tasked with providing diverse perspectives and challenging power often fall prey to the same ideological conformity. The role of the media as the fourth estate is compromised when it becomes an echo chamber, echoing only a single narrative and failing to hold all sides accountable. Instead of fostering robust debate, they often function as echo chambers, reinforcing pre-existing biases and silencing dissenting voices. This not only undermines the credibility of the media, but also erodes public trust, as audiences become increasingly aware of the lack of diversity in viewpoints. This lack of intellectual diversity within media creates a feedback loop where audiences are exposed to a narrow range of perspectives, further solidifying existing beliefs and hindering critical thinking. The consequences are far-reaching, affecting public discourse and the democratic process itself, as citizens are less informed and more polarized. The experiences of individuals like Bret Weinstein and Jordan Peterson highlight the challenges faced by those who dare to challenge the prevailing orthodoxy within academia and media. Their stories serve as cautionary tales, illustrating the personal and professional risks involved in speaking out against the dominant narrative. Weinstein, a former biology professor at Evergreen State College, was forced to resign after facing intense backlash for criticizing a campus event that asked white people to stay away for a day. His case underscores the dangers of ideological conformity and the importance of protecting academic freedom. Peterson, a clinical psychologist and professor at the University of Toronto, faced similar hostility for his criticisms of gender identity politics and political correctness. His outspoken views have sparked widespread debate, highlighting the need for open dialogue and the dangers of suppressing dissenting opinions. These cases illustrate the shrinking space for intellectual diversity within institutions that should be at the forefront of promoting open dialogue and debate. The erosion of these principles not only affects the individuals involved, but also has broader implications for society, as the suppression of diverse viewpoints stifles innovation, progress, and the very essence of democratic discourse.